The moment you hear the words, "Enough is enough," you can feel the tension crackle through the air. Imagine the most private corridors of the palace, silent, gilded, steeped in history. But today, silence isn't comfort. It's warning. Prince William, heir to the British throne, has reached a breaking point. Meghan Markle has done it again. She has, once more, stepped into the shadow of Princess Diana, mimicking her style, her public persona, even the gestures that made Diana a global icon. But this time, it isn't just an imitation, it's a provocation. And William isn't standing idly by. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. It started quietly, as these things often do. Rumors trickled through palace staff channels and private aides. Meghan had been spotted at a charity gala, choosing an ensemble so reminiscent of Diana's iconic blue dress that even seasoned reporters did a double take. Not just the color, but the way the fabric flowed, the cut of the jacket, the subtle nods to Diana's late-night gala appearances in London. It was uncanny, too uncanny. And in the palace, whispers spread like wildfire. "She's doing it again," one aide muttered. "She's playing Diana." But it isn't just the attire that matters. It's the symbolism. William sees it for what it is, a challenge. A public act that forces him to confront not only Meghan's relentless media strategy, but also the emotional weight of his mother's legacy. Diana isn't just a memory. She is the prism through which William measures everything: love, betrayal, public perception, family duty. And watching Meghan step into that prism, emulating his mother's poise and influence, strikes him in a way the world outside the palace will never understand. Now, you might be asking, why does this matter to us? Why should anyone outside of royal circles care about fashion choices or symbolic gestures? The answer is simple. What Meghan does publicly is never just fashion. Every move she makes is amplified, scrutinized, dissected, and often weaponized. For William, it isn't about jealousy. It isn't about rivalry. It's about legacy. Diana's story, her memory, her work, they are sacred in ways that the public only glimpses. When Meghan steps into that narrative, the consequences ripple far beyond the palace walls. It becomes a story of control, manipulation, and ultimately, power. And now, William has taken action. But this isn't the kind of action that makes headlines immediately. There's no press release, no Instagram post. It's a decision made in private chambers, behind closed doors, with only a select circle of advisors, confidants, and aides. The decision is as strategic as it is emotional. And it carries a singular, unmistakable message. The Diana legacy is being protected, and Harry and Meghan are, for the first time, being excluded entirely. But let's step back for a moment. To truly understand why William's decision is so seismic, you need to know the full context. This isn't just a one-off incident. It's part of a pattern that has been building for years. From the very beginning of Meghan and Harry's relationship, William has watched, measured, and calculated. Public appearances, charitable donations, interviews, every detail mattered. Every gesture Meghan made that echoed Diana's influence, intentionally or not, became a flashpoint. William observed in silence for years, giving Harry the benefit of the doubt, maintaining a diplomatic front, all while internally noting every overstep. And now, it's reached a climax. Meghan's latest public moves. Cosplaying Diana at multiple events, speaking in ways that mirror her mother's advocacy, even curating moments that draw direct comparisons, have pushed William beyond the limit. To him, it's not flattery, it's appropriation. It's taking a story that is deeply personal, twisting it into a public narrative that serves Meghan's brand, not the family's legacy. And in that private moment, in the quiet of the palace library, William made a decision that will have repercussions that no one outside those walls could anticipate. The tension isn't just symbolic. Sources inside Buckingham Palace have confirmed that conversations erupted among aides and senior officials. One insider described the atmosphere as electrified, almost combustible. Discussions about Meghan's latest appearances led quickly to the drafting of a plan, a strategy so decisive that it blindsided even some members of the royal household. William is not making a statement. He is drawing a line. And that line excludes Harry and Meghan entirely from a new initiative, a Diana tribute project that is meant to honor her life, her work, and her values, but without the involvement of the very couple who have made headlines by claiming a connection to her ethos. Can you imagine the public fallout when this is revealed? The media storm that is sure to follow? William is preparing for scrutiny, but he is also preparing to withstand the criticism, because to him, this isn't about popularity. It's about principle. The project is meticulously planned to highlight Diana's true contributions, her compassion, her humanitarian work, her legacy as a mother and global icon. Every detail is being curated, every event is carefully mapped, and every symbolic gesture is intentional. There is no room for error and no allowance for exploitation. Meanwhile, the Sussexes remain unaware of the depth of William's planning. Meghan continues to court public attention, presenting herself in ways that echo Diana's image. Harry, loyal yet conflicted, is caught between defending his wife and acknowledging the growing rift with his brother. The family dynamics are tense. Every whispered conversation in the corridors, every subtle nod during public appearances, every carefully crafted media statement is a chess move in a game the world only sees fragments of. And yet, the strategy, the drama, the stakes, they are real, palpable, and deeply emotional. And the public? They are hungry. Every appearance, every hint, every social media post is analyzed, dissected, debated. Royal commentators are already spinning narratives about a feud, a falling out, a battle for Diana's legacy. And in reality, it is all of that, but it is also more. It is personal, painful, and, in many ways, inevitable. Because the emotional weight of Diana's legacy is enormous, and for William, there is only one way to protect it. But here's the question that keeps palace insiders awake at night. What will Meghan do when she discovers she has been excluded? How will Harry respond when the full scope of William's decision becomes public? And how will the royal family navigate a media storm that is sure to escalate into something unprecedented? These questions are not hypothetical. They are real, immediate, and already shaping the next steps in this high-stakes drama. The story is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. What William has set in motion is not merely a tribute project. It is a statement, a warning, and a challenge wrapped into one. And as the palace prepares for the unveiling, every eye will be watching, every headline will analyze, and every member of the royal family will be forced to respond. The tension is electric, the stakes are personal, and the consequences will ripple through history. So, are you ready to step inside this drama? To see behind the gilded gates, through the secret corridors, into the rooms where decisions are made and futures are shaped? Because what comes next will change the royal narrative in ways no one saw coming. It's a story of power, legacy, betrayal, and emotion. A story that bridges the past with the present and sets the stage for a confrontation that the world is about to witness. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The moment Meghan Markle stepped into the gala hall, all eyes turned, not because of the event itself, but because of her. There she was, dressed in a flowing powder blue gown that immediately drew gasps from reporters, social media users, and even palace insiders who were quietly observing from behind closed doors. It wasn't just the color that shocked everyone. It was the cut, the elegance, the way she carried herself. It was Diana, not a loose resemblance, not a subtle nod, but a full-on, unmistakable homage, or, depending on who you asked, a recreation. And the whispers started almost immediately. "You can't do this," one palisade muttered, barely audible, while another shook their head. "It's crossing a line." But what exactly that line was had become increasingly difficult to define. To the public, Meghan's fashion choice seemed glamorous, strategic, and perfectly in tune with royal charity events. But behind palace walls, it was read differently. William, already sensitive about the memory of his mother, felt it as a personal affront. This wasn't just another outfit. It was a message, an intrusion into a deeply private narrative. This was not the first time Meghan had been compared to Diana, and certainly not the first time she had drawn intentional parallels. But the sheer audacity of this event, with carefully curated lighting, strategically photographed moments, and speech patterns reminiscent of Diana's iconic addresses, sent shockwaves through the inner royal circle. Observers noted that Meghan's speech included references to children's charities, global crises, and emotional appeals strikingly similar to Diana's speeches in the late 80s and early 90s. Was it flattery? Or was it deliberate mimicry designed to position herself in Diana's shadow? Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags comparing Meghan to Diana trended worldwide. Fans of Diana expressed outrage, claiming Meghan was playing dress-up with tragedy, while Meghan supporters praised her for honoring the late princess. Every news outlet had a take, and every palace aide knew that these appearances weren't just about Meghan. They were statements, calculated or instinctual, meant to shape perception and influence the narrative. William's reaction, however, was unlike anything the palace had seen before. He didn't just comment. He acted internally, sending discreet messages to close advisors to assess the situation. He demanded detailed reports on Meghan's recent appearances, her social media activity, and any subtle gestures that may have mirrored Diana's. Sources close to William said he was visibly disturbed by the mimicry, describing it as both strategically calculated and emotionally painful. In private meetings, he reportedly questioned, "Where does admiration end and exploitation begin?" This question wasn't rhetorical. Every detail mattered. From Meghan's jewelry choices, reminiscent of Diana's favorites, to her mannerisms and charitable focus, William saw a pattern emerging. To him, this was no longer just about public image. It was about legacy. Diana's life, her compassion, her approach to global issues, they were sacred. And in William's eyes, they were being co-opted, intentionally or not, by someone who had married into the family, yet had repeatedly shown a flair for public attention and media strategy. But the outrage didn't stop at the palace. Cultural commentators and royal pundits immediately picked up the story. "This is uncanny," one commentator said on live television. "She's walking in Diana's footsteps, literally and figuratively." Others noted that Meghan's choice of words in interviews mirrored Diana's tone and cadence, with certain sentences lifted almost verbatim from historic speeches. Some saw it as homage, others saw it as appropriation. And amid the debate, the palace remained silent publicly, which only fueled speculation. What truly set this moment apart, according to insiders, was the timing. Meghan had chosen a high-profile event coinciding with the anniversary of a significant moment in Diana's public life. Every element seemed designed to evoke comparison, to draw media attention, and to position herself as an heir to Diana's legacy, bypassing the actual line of succession and family hierarchy. To William, this wasn't flattery. This was an intrusion. The emotional stakes were immense. William reportedly spent hours in private reflection after the gala, revisiting childhood memories of his mother, her style, her work, her struggles, and the unrelenting public scrutiny she faced. Observers close to him said he felt a mix of anger, sadness, and protective instinct, a cocktail of emotions that culminated in his decision to act decisively. He wasn't just thinking about appearances or media coverage. He was thinking about the historical record, about ensuring that Diana's true contributions were honored without being diluted by imitation or opportunism. Yet, the reactions outside the palace were equally dramatic. Social media users, influencers, and commentators created endless content comparing Meghan to Diana. Side-by-side images circulated, dissecting posture, gestures, facial expressions, and wardrobe choices. Every movement Meghan made was analyzed for intention, and every public opinion piece, whether supportive or critical, increased the pressure on the palace to respond, though publicly they remained steadfastly neutral. Some palace insiders even warned that Meghan's actions risked inflaming tensions not only with William, but with other members of the family. The Sussexes were already considered somewhat isolated from certain royal traditions and responsibilities, and this bold display, whether homage or mimicry, risked deepening the rift. William's inner circle reportedly debated whether to address the issue privately or wait for a public opportunity to assert control over the Diana legacy. This is where the stakes began to crystallize. It wasn't merely a fashion faux pas or an emulation. It was a statement, a claim, and, to William, a challenge. He reportedly told close aides, "She can't appropriate Diana. Not again. This ends now." And in that moment, What began as private reflection became a strategic pivot. Plans were set into motion to establish a new project, a tribute to Diana that would honor her life, her values, and her legacy, but explicitly excluding Harry and Meghan. This decision was unprecedented. While previous initiatives had included all family members, this one would clearly delineate boundaries. The inner workings of the palace, sources say, became almost militarized. Advisors, aides, and even external consultants were consulted to ensure the Diana tribute project would be flawless, emotionally resonant, and entirely separate from the Sussexes' influence. Every element was designed to protect Diana's legacy from being co-opted, misrepresented, or used for self-promotion. William's objective was clear: honor his mother authentically, maintain family integrity, and reclaim control over the narrative. And yet, the drama was far from over. Meghan remained unaware of the full scope of William's response. Publicly, she continued to engage in appearances that mirrored Diana, strategically curated moments that maintained her media profile. Harry, meanwhile, navigated a complicated mix of loyalty, frustration, and concern, trying to balance defending his wife with acknowledging his brother's emotional stakes. The dynamics were complex, tense, and fraught with emotion. Every palace source, every insider account, every minute detail pointed to one undeniable truth: the Diana tribute project was not just a symbolic act, it was a turning point. William had drawn a line, and he was prepared to enforce it. The message was clear. Meghan and Harry could no longer position themselves as central to Diana's legacy. Whether the world agreed or disagreed, William's decision had been made. But here's the crucial point: the story is only beginning. William's move, calculated yet deeply emotional, sets the stage for a confrontation that will ripple across media outlets, social networks, and public opinion. Meghan's reaction is uncertain, Harry's response is pending, and the royal family as a whole is bracing for the storm. Because in this high-stakes narrative, every gesture, every statement, every appearance matters, and nothing happens in isolation. So the question looms: how will Meghan respond when she discovers she has been deliberately excluded from a tribute designed to honor her mother-in-law's memory? How will Harry navigate his loyalty to his wife and his brother? And what does this mean for the perception of the royal family worldwide? These questions aren't just speculation. They are the next chapter in a story that is rapidly evolving, full of intrigue, emotion, and undeniable drama. And as the palace prepares for the unveiling of the Diana tribute project, one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The royal family is often described as a picture of unity, elegance, and timeless tradition. But beneath the polished exterior, there are tensions, unspoken rivalries, and simmering resentments that rarely reach the public eye. And right now, at the heart of the storm, sits William, visibly shaken, grappling not just with his grief over Diana, but with the actions of his brother and sister-in-law. The rift has grown wider, deeper, and more public with each passing year. But Meghan's latest move, once again channeling Diana's persona, has pushed it to the breaking point. The division isn't just about Meghan mimicking Diana. To understand this fully, we need to rewind to the early days of Harry and Meghan's relationship. From the beginning, William watched with cautious curiosity. He welcomed Harry's happiness, but he remained wary. Subtle red flags appeared: overzealous media appearances, interviews framed to capture global attention, and public moments that seemed to strategically place Meghan in a Diana-esque spotlight. He interpreted them as deliberate positioning, a subtle assertion that she, Meghan Markle, could step into Diana's shadow, influence public perception, and redefine narratives that were deeply personal to him and his family. Every gesture, every speech, every carefully curated outfit felt like an intrusion. The divide between William and Harry is one of profound complexity. On the surface, they are brothers, bound by blood and history. But emotionally, they have drifted apart. This family division is not just personal, it has strategic implications. The royal family, after all, operates under constant scrutiny. Every choice is public, every reaction analyzed, and every misstep amplified. The stakes for William are enormous: preserving Diana's legacy, maintaining public trust, and ensuring that the monarchy is seen as unified and principled. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan are navigating a dual narrative, managing their media image while defending against perceived attacks from within their own family. It is a conflict of narratives, of perception, and, ultimately, of control. What makes the situation even more dramatic is the timing. Meghan's Diana-inspired appearances coincide with key royal milestones, moments that carry symbolic weight. Anniversaries of Diana's charitable achievements, landmark speeches, and public campaigns. All these events are now stages where the Sussexes' alignment with Diana is being questioned. William sees this as a violation of both emotional trust and historical integrity. He believes that Diana's story should be honored authentically, not strategically repurposed for publicity or self-promotion. Palace insiders reveal that this division has been quietly escalating behind closed doors. Meetings that once focused on ceremonial planning now involve heated discussions about legacy, public perception, and media strategy. Advisors who once mediated disputes between the brothers are now bracing for explosive confrontations. William has reportedly insisted that every step of the upcoming Diana tribute project must be carefully curated to prevent any interference from Harry and Meghan, ensuring that the tribute is pure, undiluted, and free from any perceived manipulation. Meanwhile, Harry is caught in a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. On one hand, he wants to support Meghan. On the other, he is painfully aware of William's emotional stakes. Sources suggest that Harry feels trapped between loyalty to his brother and devotion to his wife. This conflict has created a new layer of tension within the family, a tension that is increasingly difficult to conceal. Each public appearance, each statement, each social media post is scrutinized, interpreted, and debated, creating a feedback loop that amplifies the division. Interestingly, the media has also played a significant role in exacerbating the rift. From the very beginning, outlets have framed Meghan's actions as both homage and competition. Every subtle gesture that echoes Diana's legacy is dissected, and narratives of rivalry are amplified. Social media, in particular, has become a battleground where public opinion often mirrors and magnifies palace tension. Every comment, every post, and every viral image feeds into the story of a family divided, a narrative William is determined to control. But William is not reacting impulsively. He is measured, deliberate, and strategic. The decision to create the Diana tribute project, excluding Harry and Meghan entirely, is emblematic of his approach. It is a statement designed to reclaim control over the legacy of his mother, to assert emotional and symbolic authority, and to establish boundaries within the family. This is not just a personal act. It is a calculated move that signals to the world where loyalty, respect, and legacy intersect. Sources close to the royal household have revealed that discussions leading up to the project were tense, emotional, and fraught with complexity. Advisors debated how to manage the optics, how to communicate intent without inflaming public perception, and how to maintain family cohesion while drawing a definitive line. William reportedly emphasized that the project's success hinges on clarity, authenticity, and emotional resonance. Every element, from event planning to public messaging, was meticulously considered to ensure that the tribute honors Diana without compromise. And yet, despite all these measures, the family division continues to simmer. Meghan, unaware of the full scope of William's plans, continues her public appearances, each one further amplifying the rift. Harry, balancing loyalty to both his wife and his brother, faces mounting pressure to respond. The palace, meanwhile, operates with caution, recognizing that any misstep could escalate tensions into a full-blown scandal. The question that hangs over the royal family is clear. How will this division evolve? Will Harry and Meghan attempt to assert influence over the tribute, risking public backlash? Will William maintain his hard line, potentially deepening familial estrangement? And what will the public perception be when these private conflicts inevitably intersect with highly visible, symbolic events? One thing is certain: the royal family's unity has been tested, and the stakes are higher than ever. William's decisive action to exclude Harry and Meghan from the Diana tribute project marks a turning point, signaling not only his determination to protect his mother's legacy, but also a willingness to confront long-standing family dynamics head-on. The question now is how the Sussexes will respond, and whether this division will remain a private struggle or explode into public spectacle. And just when it seemed the tension had reached its peak, insiders hinted that a new development was on the horizon, one that could redefine relationships, shift alliances, and transform the family's dynamic in ways no one outside the palace could predict. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Imagine being the son of the most photographed woman in the world, someone whose life, every move, every tear, and every triumph was broadcast globally, yet whose death left you feeling more exposed, more vulnerable, and more determined than ever to protect her memory. That's Prince William's reality. From the moment Diana passed, her legacy wasn't just a historical artifact for him. It was a living, breathing responsibility, a constant reminder of the woman who shaped his world and shaped the public's perception of what it meant to be a member of the royal family. William's connection to his mother is not abstract. It is intensely personal. He remembers the quiet moments, the whispered reassurances, the way she could make him laugh even when the world seemed dark. These memories aren't just nostalgia. They are guiding principles that influence every decision he makes as a father, as a future king, and as a custodian of Diana's legacy. Every charitable act, every public engagement, and every private reflection is filtered through the lens of Diana's values: compassion, empathy, integrity. That bond is why Meghan Markle's recent actions hit so hard. To William, seeing his brother's wife channel Diana, whether in clothing, gestures, or speeches, is more than unsettling. It is intrusive. It feels like someone stepping into sacred ground without invitation. And it isn't just a superficial resemblance that triggers this reaction. It is the emotional weight behind the mimicry. Every audience gasp, every media headline praising Meghan's homage, every viral photograph is, in William's mind, a subtle infringement on the sanctity of his mother's memory. To outsiders, it may seem dramatic, even overblown. It's just a dress, they might say, or a choice of words. But to William, it's the difference between honoring a memory and appropriating it. His mother's legacy is inseparable from her character, her struggles, and the profound public and private sacrifices she made. It's deeply entwined with his own identity, his sense of purpose, and his understanding of the monarchy's role in the world. When that legacy is interpreted, or potentially distorted, by someone who was never a part of that intimate history, the emotional stakes skyrocket. William has carried this responsibility with him for decades. As a child, he lived in the shadow of tragedy, navigating grief while learning to function in the public eye. He understood early on that his mother's life was not just his own. It belonged, in part, to the world. Yet he also knew that only those who genuinely understood her essence could preserve it authentically. This dual awareness, of public expectation and private fidelity, has shaped William into the man he is today. Measured, deliberate, deeply empathetic, yet unyielding when it comes to protecting what he holds sacred. Insiders describe William's emotional approach to Diana's legacy as both strategic and deeply personal. In private meetings, he often references specific lessons from his mother: her courage in facing the press, her dedication to causes like landmine eradication and children's welfare, and her insistence on showing compassion to those often overlooked. These principles guide the creation of initiatives, speeches, and public appearances. They inform decisions about which charities receive attention, which causes are highlighted, and which narratives are endorsed. Diana's influence is omnipresent, subtle yet powerful, shaping the way William interacts with the world. This bond also explains his intense reaction to Meghan's mimicry. William doesn't see Diana's image as a costume or a branding tool. It is a living, emotional connection that commands respect. Every gesture, word choice, or stylistic reference made by Meghan in the public sphere feels like a potential distortion of that connection. It is not jealousy, it is guardianship. And the deeper he delves into his reflections, the more he recognizes a need to take action, to establish boundaries, and to ensure that Diana's story remains authentic, untarnished, and free from exploitation. William's advisors have often noted that his approach to legacy is methodical. He doesn't act impulsively or seek immediate gratification. Each decision, especially when it comes to matters involving Diana, is carefully considered. He weighs public perception against private integrity, media scrutiny against emotional truth. This strategic approach has allowed him to navigate decades of intense public attention, balancing grief with duty and personal sentiment with institutional responsibility. And yet, even with this careful consideration, the repeated appearances of Meghan channeling Diana have pushed him into a position where passive observation is no longer sufficient. The emotional buildup reached a peak during recent private reflections. Sources describe William as walking through palace corridors late at night, revisiting photographs, letters, and recorded moments of Diana's life. These weren't mere memories. They were anchors, reminders of the principles he felt compelled to uphold. Seeing Meghan's public acts, so reminiscent of these moments, ignited a protective instinct that was impossible to ignore. It was as if he were witnessing the reinterpretation of a personal and historical narrative by someone outside its core circle. William's bond with Diana also manifests in his parenting. He sees her in every interaction with his own children, in the lessons he imparts, in the values he emphasizes. Protecting Diana's legacy is intertwined with shaping the next generation, ensuring that George, Charlotte, and Louis grow up understanding not only their heritage but the weight of the values that accompany it. This parental lens magnifies his sensitivity to Meghan's actions. It's no longer only about public perception, it's about the lessons his children receive about authenticity, legacy, and integrity. And that is why the Diana Tribute Project is so critical. For William, this isn't merely an initiative for public consumption. It is a declaration, a formalized means of protecting and curating Diana's memory with integrity. Every event, every speech, every charitable endeavor is designed to reflect her true essence. By excluding Harry and Meghan, William is asserting control over a narrative that he feels has been at risk of distortion. This is not exclusion for its own sake. It is preservation, a safeguard to ensure that Diana's life and work remain represented accurately and meaningfully. Yet, this emotional commitment is not without its consequences. Excluding Harry and Meghan is bound to deepen family divisions. It risks public criticism, media speculation, and potentially explosive personal confrontations. William is fully aware of the delicate balance between protecting legacy and maintaining family cohesion. Nevertheless, his emotional connection to Diana demands decisive action. The stakes are personal, historical, and symbolic all at once. At the same time, William recognizes the subtlety required. This is not a vendetta. It is a carefully orchestrated effort to maintain integrity. The tribute is designed to celebrate Diana's humanitarian work, her compassion, and her influence on the world, without creating a spectacle or drama. It is meant to honor, not compete, to preserve, not provoke. And yet, the exclusion of Harry and Meghan will inevitably provoke discussion, speculation, and potentially anger, elements that William must navigate with caution, precision, and resolve. For William, this is a test of everything he has learned from his mother. Courage in the face of scrutiny, integrity in the face of public opinion, and emotional resilience in the face of personal conflict. The Tribute Project is not just a memorial, it is a statement. It declares that Diana's legacy cannot be claimed, commodified, or repurposed by those who were never intimately connected to it. It is a protective, almost sacred, assertion of truth, one that carries profound emotional weight and historical significance. But even as he solidifies these plans, questions linger. How will Harry react when he realizes the exclusion is deliberate? How will Meghan respond to what she may perceive as a slight, a challenge, or even a personal affront? And how will the media interpret this delicate balance between familial integrity and public perception? The answers to these questions will shape the next phase of the unfolding drama, one that promises to be as emotionally charged as it is publicly scrutinized. And just when it seemed William's resolve had reached its peak, insiders hinted at a private confrontation looming, one that could redefine loyalties, challenge perceptions, and escalate tensions to unprecedented levels. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Behind the polished doors of the palace, away from the prying eyes of the media and the public, something extraordinary was unfolding. Prince William, increasingly alarmed by Meghan Markle's repeated mimicry of Diana, convened a series of private meetings with a select group of confidants and advisors. These were not casual discussions. They were strategic sessions, meticulously planned, emotionally charged, and designed to chart a path forward in a situation that had escalated beyond private discomfort. Sources inside the palace have confirmed that these meetings were intense, sometimes lasting hours, as William pored over every detail of Meghan's public appearances, social media posts, and media statements. One insider described the atmosphere as electrified, almost tense enough to be palpable. Every nuance was analyzed. The way Meghan carried herself at charity galas, the subtle gestures reminiscent of Diana, the carefully curated images shared on Instagram and in press releases. William's concern was not superficial. He saw this as a direct challenge to the integrity of his mother's legacy. The first order of business in these meetings was information gathering. Advisors presented detailed dossiers documenting every instance in which Meghan had aligned herself with Diana's persona. From side-by-side photographs of Meghan and Diana to video compilations highlighting speech patterns, hand gestures, and facial expressions, the evidence was exhaustive. Every detail mattered. Every subtle nod, every mirrored posture, every choice of words was examined not just for its aesthetic or media value, but for its emotional and symbolic implications. William listened attentively, occasionally pausing to reflect, his expression a mixture of sadness, frustration, and determination. According to sources, he would often say, "It's not just the image, it's the intent. The intention to step into my mother's life, to claim her essence, that's what cannot stand." His words were measured, deliberate, and resolute, reflecting a deep understanding of the stakes. This was not about rivalry or jealousy. It was about legacy, emotional truth, and historical accuracy. But the meetings went beyond analysis. They were also about strategy. William was determined to act decisively, to protect his mother's memory without creating unnecessary public conflict. Discussions turned to potential initiatives that could honor Diana authentically, projects that reflected her humanitarian work, her compassion, and her influence. These weren't merely ceremonial gestures. They were carefully constructed efforts to reclaim control over the narrative, to ensure that Diana's story was told truthfully and respectfully. Advisors suggested multiple approaches, each more sophisticated than the last. Some proposed a series of high-profile public events highlighting Diana's charitable efforts, meticulously designed to draw attention to her accomplishments without inviting sensationalism. Others suggested private educational programs or partnerships with global organizations, subtly reinforcing Diana's legacy while minimizing the risk of media misinterpretation. William considered each option carefully, weighing public perception, family dynamics, and emotional resonance. One source revealed that the discussions occasionally became heated, especially when advisors debated how to handle Harry and Meghan's potential reactions. Some argued for subtle diplomacy, hoping to avoid deepening the divide between the brothers. Others emphasized clarity and firm boundaries, insisting that any tribute must exclude those whose actions could compromise the integrity of the project. William, sources say, was unwavering. "Integrity comes first," he reportedly stated. "We cannot allow history to be rewritten or appropriated." It wasn't just the content of the meetings that mattered, it was also the secrecy. Every detail was tightly controlled, known only to those directly involved. There were no leaks, no public statements, and no media previews. William understood that any premature disclosure could undermine the project, fuel speculation, or provoke Meghan and Harry in unpredictable ways. The careful curation of information was as much a strategic tool as the project itself. In addition to planning the tribute, William also explored ways to communicate his intentions subtly to the family. He wanted to make it clear that this initiative was about honor and preservation, not exclusion or vendetta. Yet, the message also had to be firm. The Diana legacy could not be co-opted or manipulated. This required delicate messaging, often crafted in collaboration with communications experts and senior aides, to ensure that both the internal family dynamics and the public narrative were considered. Even within these private meetings, emotional moments surfaced. Advisors recounted instances where William became visibly emotional while reviewing archival footage of Diana. The grief, the love, and the sense of responsibility were palpable. One aide described William saying, "Every time I see her, I feel the responsibility. How do I protect this? How do I honor her without allowing it to be twisted?" These were not rhetorical questions. They were guiding principles that would shape every decision he made moving forward. The secret meetings also revealed an emerging strategy. The Diana Tribute Project would be unprecedented in scope and impact, designed to highlight Diana's humanitarian work on a global scale. But perhaps most importantly, it would exclude Harry and Meghan. Sources insist that this decision was not made lightly. It was the culmination of years of observation, emotional consideration, and strategic thinking. William had concluded that their involvement posed a risk to the authenticity of the tribute, given recent public behaviors that mirrored Diana in ways he found concerning. Every advisor in these meetings understood the stakes. The project would inevitably attract media attention, social commentary, and public debate. But William was determined that the focus remain on Diana, her values, her work, and her legacy, not on family drama or media spectacle. The balance between honoring the past and managing the present was delicate, but William's resolve was unwavering. Insiders also hinted at the involvement of close friends and former colleagues of Diana, who were consulted to ensure the authenticity of the tribute. Their perspectives were invaluable, offering insights into Diana's personality, motivations, and passions that William felt could not be captured by any media analysis or secondary reporting. This collaborative approach ensured that the project would be deeply rooted in truth, emotion, and historical fidelity. And yet, despite all the planning, the meetings underscored one undeniable truth: the divide within the royal family was widening. William's decision to act decisively and exclude Harry and Meghan was bound to provoke reactions. Meghan, continuing her public engagements, remained unaware of the private deliberations. Harry, caught between loyalty to his wife and the weight of family expectations, was in a position of emotional complexity that threatened to spill into public view. Every participant in the meetings recognized that the coming weeks and months would be pivotal. Decisions made behind these closed doors would ripple outward, influencing media narratives, public perception, and familial relationships. William's careful orchestration was a bid to preserve Diana's legacy, but it was also a test of loyalty, trust, and emotional resilience within the family. And then, insiders revealed a startling development. During one late-night strategy session, William made a decisive announcement. The tribute project would move forward immediately, with a detailed timeline, public-facing initiatives, and events designed to honor Diana in the purest possible way. But there was one condition. Harry and Meghan would not be involved in any aspect of the project. The statement, simple as it was, sent shockwaves even within the palace walls. Advisors whispered, exchanged looks, and understood the gravity. This was a clear line drawn, a declaration that would have consequences reaching far beyond palace corridors. The ramifications were immediate. The secrecy surrounding the meetings meant that Harry and Meghan were unaware of the plan's details, leaving them vulnerable to the public perception of being intentionally excluded. Media outlets would inevitably speculate, social media would erupt, and public opinion would be divided. The tension between personal loyalty, family unity, and public duty had reached a tipping point. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The moment the Diana Tribute Project first became known outside palace walls, the ripple effect was instantaneous. While William had painstakingly orchestrated every detail behind closed doors, someone, or something, had ensured that whispers of the initiative would inevitably reach the media. Whether it was a mismanaged briefing, a well-placed source, or a slip among aides, the news leaked, and the world's eyes immediately turned toward Buckingham Palace, buzzing with anticipation, speculation, and, in some quarters, outrage. It started as a trickle. Early morning gossip columns mentioned a major tribute in the works for Princess Diana, without elaborating on the specifics. Within hours, the story had evolved into headlines declaring that Prince William was spearheading a tribute project entirely separate from Harry and Meghan. Social media, as always, amplified the leak, with hashtags, viral posts, and heated commentary spreading faster than any official statement could contain. For William, the leak was both a curse and an opportunity. On one hand, the element of surprise had been compromised. On the other, it underscored the public's insatiable curiosity about Diana, the royal family, and, increasingly, the drama surrounding Meghan and Harry. Sources inside the palace reported that William spent hours in private consultation with advisors, recalibrating the project timeline, reinforcing security protocols, and preparing for the media storm that would follow. The project itself was ambitious, the first of its kind in decades. It wasn't a single event or a ceremonial unveiling. It was a multi-layered initiative designed to honor Diana's life, her humanitarian work, and her global impact. From partnerships with international charities focused on children's welfare, landmine removal, and mental health, to carefully curated exhibitions of Diana's personal archives, the tribute aimed to provide a holistic, authentic reflection of her contributions. Every detail was intentional, every choice rooted in preserving the truth of her legacy. Insiders confirmed that the exclusion of Harry and Meghan was not incidental. In private sessions, William had emphasized that the project needed to remain authentic, uncontaminated by any recent actions he considered inappropriate or opportunistic. The public's fascination with Meghan channeling Diana only reinforced his determination. This wasn't about punishing Harry and Meghan. It was about safeguarding the story of Diana, ensuring that her life and work were celebrated without distortion, mimicry, or strategic reinterpretation. Media reaction was immediate and explosive. Pundits debated the implications of Harry and Meghan's exclusion, with some framing it as a family feud and others seeing it as a principled stand. Social media erupted with conflicting opinions. Some applauded William's commitment to authenticity, while others criticized the perceived snub, questioning whether it might escalate tension within the family. Every news cycle added fuel to the fire, and the palace, as always, remained silent publicly, allowing speculation to run rampant. Yet, the real drama was happening behind closed doors. Palace insiders revealed that once the leak occurred, William convened emergency meetings to assess potential fallout. Advisors were instructed to monitor media narratives, analyze public reaction, and anticipate the Sussex's response. Every tweet, post, and article was scrutinized not only for its content, but for its impact on family relations. William, sources say, was acutely aware that perception would shape reality, and he needed to maintain both emotional and strategic control. The tribute project was designed with meticulous attention to symbolism. Every event, exhibit, and charitable collaboration was chosen to reflect Diana's authentic values, from her humanitarian work to her deep connection with children and marginalized communities. William insisted that no part of the initiative could be used to elevate individuals outside the immediate family or to distort the narrative for personal gain. This principle directly influenced the decision to exclude Harry and Meghan, ensuring that the project remained a pure reflection of Diana's ethos. Insiders also noted that William personally reviewed every aspect of the project, from event locations and guest lists to speeches and visual displays. He was deeply involved in every decision, reflecting his emotional commitment to the initiative. This hands-on approach underscored his determination that the tribute would be both meaningful and untouchable, an enduring testament to Diana, free from influence, manipulation, or controversy. Meanwhile, the leak had triggered a flurry of activity among palace aides, security personnel, and communications teams. Plans were developed to control the narrative, manage potential leaks, and coordinate media coverage. William's team worked tirelessly to ensure that the project would be presented in a way that honored Diana while mitigating potential backlash or misinterpretation. Every detail, from press briefings to official photographs, was calculated to reinforce the integrity of the tribute. Despite these measures, tension was palpable. Harry and Meghan remained unaware of the full scope of William's plans, leaving them vulnerable to speculation and public scrutiny. Advisors feared that the revelation of their exclusion would provoke strong reactions, potentially escalating familial conflict into public spectacle. Meanwhile, William maintained his composure, balancing the emotional weight of the situation with a strategic focus on preserving Diana's legacy. As the tribute project continued to take shape, insiders noted several key moments that highlighted William's emotional investment. One source described him personally reviewing archival footage of Diana, pausing to reflect on her speeches, gestures, and interactions. "He's not just honoring history," the source explained. "He's honoring his mother. Every detail is personal. Every decision is measured against what she would have wanted." This emotional lens influenced every aspect of the project, from design to messaging to public engagement. However, the leak also intensified speculation about potential repercussions. Public opinion was split, and media outlets speculated about Harry and Meghan's response. Would they challenge the project? Would they attempt to assert influence over the tribute? Or would they retreat, carefully managing their public image to avoid further conflict? The uncertainty created an undercurrent of tension, amplifying the drama surrounding the initiative. Even within the palace, reactions varied. Some aides and advisors expressed concern that the exclusion of Harry and Meghan could deepen family divisions, creating a lasting rift. Others argued that maintaining the integrity of the project was paramount, regardless of potential backlash. William, sources say, consistently sided with the latter perspective, emphasizing the importance of preserving authenticity over appeasing individuals whose recent behavior he found problematic. And then, insiders revealed a startling twist. During a late-night briefing, one aide disclosed that certain aspects of the project had been purposefully designed to highlight Diana's unique contributions in ways that contrasted with Meghan's recent public actions. Whether it was the selection of specific charities, the choice of event venues, or the timing of key announcements, every element was crafted to underscore authenticity, integrity, and emotional resonance. William's intent was clear. The tribute was a declaration, a public affirmation that Diana's legacy could not be co-opted or diluted. The leak, therefore, became more than a breach of secrecy. It became a catalyst, accelerating the project's visibility and forcing the public and media to confront the reality of Harry and Meghan's exclusion. Every news story, every social media post, every analyst commentary added pressure, reinforcing the stakes and heightening anticipation. The world was watching, and William knew that careful management was essential to ensure the tribute achieved its intended impact. And just as the palace braced for the inevitable reactions, sources hinted at an internal moment of reckoning. The leak had set the stage, the media frenzy was building, and the emotional stakes had never been higher. William's decision, calculated and deliberate, had entered the public sphere, forcing every member of the family and the world to confront the implications. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The decision was not impulsive. It was not petty. It was calculated, measured, and rooted in years of observation, reflection, and emotional calculus. Prince William had watched, often in private, as Harry and Meghan navigated the public stage with increasing autonomy, crafting a narrative that both elevated their own profile and, in his view, risked distorting the memory of Diana. To William, their repeated attempts to align themselves with Diana's image were no longer flattering tributes. They were a challenge, a subtle claim that they too were central to her legacy. Sources inside the palace described the conversations leading up to the exclusion as tense and emotionally charged. Advisors and confidants were summoned repeatedly to discuss the implications of Meghan's actions, the public appearances, the speeches, the carefully curated media content. Every movement she made that echoed Diana's style or advocacy was cataloged and analyzed. William's concern was not rooted in personal rivalry. It was rooted in the need to preserve authenticity. He reportedly said in one private meeting, "Diana's legacy isn't a costume to be worn when convenient. It is sacred, and it must be protected." The heart of the matter lay in control of narrative. William had always been acutely aware that public perception could shape history. If Harry and Meghan were allowed to participate in the Diana tribute project, the risk was clear. Media coverage could interpret their involvement as a continuation of Diana's legacy, irrespective of intent or authenticity. William recognized that the public, often eager for sensationalism, could conflate homage with ownership. In his mind, The only way to maintain the integrity of the tribute was to exclude anyone whose recent behavior blurred the lines between respect and appropriation. The palace insiders explained that this was not merely about Meghan's fashion choices or public speeches. It was about pattern and intent. Over the past several years, William had observed an accumulation of actions that collectively signaled an attempt, intentional or not, to occupy Diana's space in the public consciousness. The mimicry of style, gestures, and causes, paired with a media strategy designed to maximize visibility, had reached a tipping point. It was no longer sufficient to monitor quietly. Action was required. Harry's role in this was equally complicated. As Meghan's husband, he had often supported her public positioning, framing appearances and speeches in ways that reinforced the couple's narrative. While William understood the protective instincts of a brother defending his wife, he also saw it as complicity, a failure to recognize the emotional weight of the legacy he and Diana had shared. Excluding Harry, then, was not merely a rebuke of Meghan. It was a recognition that he too had a responsibility to uphold boundaries, and had failed to do so. The exclusion was also about emotional protection. William, deeply bonded to his mother's memory, felt that involving Harry and Meghan would inevitably introduce tension, emotional conflict, and potential public spectacle into what was meant to be a tribute. He wanted a project that could honor Diana's life and work authentically, without media manipulation, misinterpretation, or personal agendas overshadowing the message. It's worth noting that this decision was not made in isolation. Advisors, confidants, and even close friends of Diana were consulted to ensure that the exclusion was both justifiable and strategically sound. Their counsel emphasized the importance of authenticity, historical accuracy, and emotional resonance. The consensus was clear. The tribute had to reflect Diana's true character and contributions, and any individuals whose recent actions risked distorting that reflection had to be kept at a distance. Public perception was a crucial factor. William understood that the world would scrutinize this decision intensely. Media outlets would frame it as a feud, commentators would speculate about family tensions, and social media would erupt with polarized opinions. Yet, William's focus remained unwavering. Protecting Diana's legacy, even at the risk of criticism or controversy, was paramount. He reportedly told his advisors, "The truth matters more than appearances. History will remember actions, not rumors." The exclusion was also about establishing boundaries. Over time, Meghan's public alignment with Diana had crossed a subtle but critical line. What may have begun as admiration had evolved into strategic positioning that blurred personal and historical boundaries. William's choice to exclude them was a clear statement. Diana's life and work are not to be leveraged for personal narrative, publicity, or branding. Inside the palace, advisors noted that the decision was met with mixed reactions. Some praised William's decisiveness and clarity of purpose, while others feared it might deepen the familial divide. Yet, everyone recognized the emotional truth. William's connection to Diana, his understanding of her legacy, and his role as custodian of her memory demanded firm action. This was not about punishment. It was about protection. Sources also revealed that William viewed this project as a form of emotional catharsis. In carefully curating the tribute, he could channel his grief, honor his mother's memory, and reclaim a narrative that had felt increasingly contested. Excluding Harry and Meghan was not merely a tactical decision. It was an emotional necessity, a safeguard against further misrepresentation, and a declaration that Diana's legacy would be preserved on her terms. Yet, the exclusion was not without consequences. While the project's intentions were pure, it inevitably risked inflaming tensions. Harry and Meghan remained unaware of the decision, and the potential for misunderstanding, public backlash, or media spin was high. Advisors worked tirelessly to anticipate reactions, strategize communications, and manage the ripple effects, knowing that every detail of the project would be scrutinized, debated, and interpreted in myriad ways. At the heart of it, William's choice to exclude Harry and Meghan was about clarity. By drawing firm boundaries, he ensured that the Diana Tribute Project remained a true reflection of her values and accomplishments, unmarred by ambiguity or conflicting narratives. Every element of the project, from the charities involved to the ceremonial gestures, was designed to reinforce authenticity and honor, while explicitly signaling that the initiative was rooted in truth, not opportunism. But perhaps the most profound aspect of this decision was the emotional weight it carried. William's actions reflected a deep understanding that legacy is not simply about public memory. It is about emotional fidelity, moral responsibility, and historical integrity. By excluding Harry and Meghan, he was asserting that Diana's life and work belong to those who understand them most intimately, who honor them authentically, and who respect the boundaries of personal and historical truth. The implications of this exclusion would ripple far beyond the walls of the palace. Media speculation, social commentary, and public discourse would explode, forcing Harry and Meghan to confront a reality that was carefully controlled yet emotionally unavoidable. William's decisiveness had set the stage for a confrontation between personal loyalty, family dynamics, and the preservation of legacy, a confrontation that was inevitable given the stakes, the personalities, and the history involved.